I'm going to tell you something that happened to me and my partner during our winter patrol near a frozen lake in a remote mountain park. You can believe it or not, but I'm telling you exactly what we saw and did. This was late January, 4 years ago, after one of the worst ice storms that region had seen in decades, and I still think about it every day. My name's Ethan. I'd been a winter emergency ranger for about 6 years when this happened. My partner Mike had been doing it even longer, 12 years, maybe 13. We'd seen a lot together: avalanche recoveries, lost hikers, hypothermia cases that came in barely alive. You get used to the cold, the isolation, the way the mountain can turn on you without warning. But you never get used to everything. That morning started normal enough. We were at the ranger station, going through equipment checks, when the alert came through on the system. Motion sensors had triggered near Crystal Lake, one of the most remote spots in our sector. The lake had been officially closed to all visitors 3 days earlier because of dangerous ice conditions. The storm had left everything unstable, unpredictable. Nobody should have been out there. Mike looked at the screen, frowning. "Could be an animal," he said, but his voice had that edge it got when something didn't sit right with him. I checked the sensor logs. Multiple triggers, spread over 20 minutes. Whatever it was moving deliberately, not just passing through. I had this feeling in my gut, the kind you learn not to ignore in this job. Something about the pattern felt wrong. "We need to check it out," I said. Mike nodded, already reaching for his gear. We loaded the snowmobile with emergency equipment: ropes, thermal blankets, medical supplies, flares. Standard protocol for a winter rescue, though neither of us said the word rescue out loud yet. At that point, I thought maybe we'd find some idiot who'd ignored the closure signs. Someone who didn't understand how quickly you can die out there when the ice gives way. I didn't know then that I was right about someone dying. I just had the time frame wrong. The ride out to Crystal Lake took 40 minutes through dense forest and over terrain that would have been impassable without the snowmobile. The cold bit through every layer we wore. It was around -15 that day, but the wind made it feel like -30. Mike drove while I kept watch on the sides, looking for any sign of movement. About halfway there, Mike slowed down without saying anything. He'd seen something. I followed his gaze to the snow beside the trail, and that's when my stomach dropped. Footprints. But not like any I'd ever seen. They were massive, easily twice the size of my own boot, maybe larger. Deep impressions in the snow, spaced far apart like whatever made them had a stride length that shouldn't be possible. The prints were vaguely human-shaped, but the proportions were all wrong. Too wide, too long. I've tracked black bears, grizzlies, elk, everything that moves through these mountains, and this was none of those things. "What the hell?" Mike whispered. I got off the snowmobile and crouched next to one of the prints. My gloved hand barely covered half of it. The depth told me this thing was heavy, really heavy. And the tracks were fresh, maybe an hour old at most. I looked up at Mike, and I could see my own confusion reflected in his face. That feeling in my gut twisted tighter. We followed the tracks. We didn't discuss it, we just did it. In our line of work, you investigate the unexplained because ignoring it can get people killed. The prints led us through a clearing, then down a slope, and with each step, I felt like we were crossing into something we weren't meant to see. I remember thinking I should suggest we call this in, get backup, but something stopped me. What would I even say? If you're wondering why we kept going, you're smarter than we were. The tracks led straight toward Crystal Lake. When we reached the tree line and the lake came into view, we both stopped. The ice stretched out in front of us like a gray mirror, covered in a thin layer of fresh snow. And cutting right across it, clear as day, were those massive footprints. They went straight out toward the center of the lake. "No way," Mike said. "Nothing that size should be out on that ice. It's not stable enough." He was right. After the storm, the lake had partially thawed and refrozen in uneven layers. The ice was a patchwork of thick and thin spots, impossible to predict. Park Service had declared it a death trap. Even someone my size would be taking a serious risk walking on it. And whatever made those tracks had to weigh 3, maybe 4 times what I did. Before I could respond, we heard it. A deep, resonant cracking sound that echoed across the lake like a gunshot. Then another, and then, God, I can still hear it. A massive splash, followed by thrashing sounds. Something had broken through the ice and was in the water. My training kicked in before my brain could catch up. "Emergency rescue protocol," I said, already moving toward the edge of the lake. "Something's drowning out there." Mike grabbed the rescue rope and sled from the snowmobile. His hands were shaking, and I don't think it was from the cold. We both knew that whatever was out there wasn't a person, wasn't an animal we recognized, but it was alive, and it was dying. "Ethan," Mike said, his voice tight. "What are we doing?" I looked at him. "Our job." We stepped onto the ice together. Every instinct I had screamed at me to turn back, but I could still hear the splashing, weaker now, more desperate. The cracking sounds continued, spiderwebbing out from somewhere ahead of us, and I knew we had maybe minutes before that ice gave way completely. I wish I could tell you I was being heroic, but mostly I was terrified. And that's when I saw it, about 60 yards out, where the ice had fractured into a jagged hole of black water. Something was in there, struggling. Stay with me here, because what I'm about to describe still doesn't make sense to me, even now, even after everything. We moved across the ice as carefully as we could, distributing our weight, testing each step. The cracking sounds were constant now, sharp reports that made my heart jump every time. Mike had the rescue rope coiled over his shoulder, and I carried the aluminum rescue poles we used to reach people who'd fallen through. Standard equipment, but nothing about this felt standard. The closer we got, the louder the splashing became. Whatever was in that water was fighting hard to stay alive. I could see massive chunks of ice floating in the hole, some of them the size of car hoods, being shoved aside by something thrashing beneath them. Steam rose from the open water. The lake temperature was probably just above freezing, which meant hypothermia would set in fast. Minutes, not hours. "Ethan, stop," Mike hissed. He'd frozen about 10 feet ahead of me, staring at the hole in the ice. I came up beside him, and that's when I saw it clearly. A hand. But calling it a hand doesn't do it justice. It was massive, easily the size of a dinner plate, fingers as thick as broom handles, gripping the edge of the ice with desperate strength. The fingers were covered in dark, matted fur, and even from 20 feet away, I could see them trembling from cold and exhaustion. Then the thing pulled itself up slightly, trying to get leverage, and I saw its face. I need you to understand something. I'm not prone to hallucinations. I don't drink on the job, wasn't on any medications, hadn't hit my head. Mike saw it too. We've compared notes 100 times since then, and we both saw the same thing. It was a face that looked almost human, but wasn't. Broad, covered in thick, dark fur, matted with ice. The features were heavy, pronounced. A flat nose, a wide mouth, eyes set deep under a prominent brow. Those eyes caught me. They weren't animal eyes. There was something in them, some kind of awareness that made my breath catch. The creature, and I don't know what else to call it, locked eyes with me for just a moment, and I saw something I wasn't expecting. Not aggression, not rage, just exhaustion and what looked like fear. It was dying, and it knew it. "Jesus Christ," Mike breathed beside me. "Is that—" "Don't say it," I cut him off, because saying it out loud would make it real, and my brain was already struggling to process what my eyes were showing me. The creature made a sound then, a deep groan that seemed to come from its chest, and slipped back into the water. Its grip on the ice was weakening. I could see its fingers sliding, losing their hold. In maybe 60 seconds, it would go under, and that would be it. I don't know what made me move forward. Maybe it was training. Maybe it was something else. But I found myself stepping closer to the edge of that broken ice, unreeling the rescue rope. "What are you doing?" Mike asked, but he was already moving with me, because that's what partners do. "We can't just watch it drown," I said. The ice beneath us groaned, a low, ominous sound that meant we were running out of time ourselves. Every ranger knows the statistics. You've got maybe 3 to 4 minutes in water this cold before your muscles stop working. After that, you're gone. This thing had already been in there for who knows how long. I got down on my stomach, distributing my weight, and crawled toward the edge. Mike anchored himself behind me, rope secured around his waist and mine. The creature's head was barely above water now, its breathing ragged and shallow. Ice was forming in its fur. "Hey!" I shouted at it. "Hey, can you hear me?" Those eyes found mine again, and I swear to you, there was understanding there. It knew I was trying to help. I extended the rescue pole toward it. "Grab on! Grab the pole!" For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with what must have been its last bit of strength, one of those massive hands reached out of the water and gripped the pole. The weight nearly pulled it out of my hands. This thing was incredibly heavy, maybe 700–800 pounds, all of it waterlogged and dying. "Mike, pull!" I yelled. We pulled together, straining against the weight. The ice beneath me cracked, a sharp sound right under my chest, and I felt it shift. We were seconds away from going through ourselves, but we kept pulling. The creature was helping as much as it could, trying to push itself up with its other arm, but its movements were sluggish now. Hypothermia was shutting it down. I hooked the rescue rope under one of its arms, barely got it around the massive shoulder, and Mike and I hauled backward with everything we had. Inch by inch, we dragged it out of the water. The ice spiderwebbed beneath us in every direction. I heard Mike praying under his breath. My shoulders screamed with the effort, but slowly, impossibly, we got the creature's upper body onto the ice. Then, the ice fractured completely. The world tilted sideways as the ice gave way beneath us. I heard the crack, like a tree splitting in half, and then suddenly I was sliding, the freezing water rushing up to meet me. My survival instinct kicked in, and I threw myself backward, scrambling for solid ice, rope still tangled around my arms. Mike grabbed the back of my jacket and yanked hard. I felt myself dragged backward across the ice, away from the expanding hole. The creature was half on the ice, half still in the water, and the section we'd just pulled it onto was breaking apart like shattered glass. "We have to get it off the lake," Mike shouted. "The whole thing's going to collapse." He was right. The weight of the creature, combined with the instability of the ice, meant we had maybe seconds before everything beneath us gave way. We couldn't afford to be careful anymore, couldn't afford to think about what this thing was, or whether we should be doing this. I looked back toward shore, about 40 yards away. Might as well have been a mile. The creature wasn't moving much now. Its eyes were half closed, breath coming in shallow gasps. I could see ice crystals forming on its fur, its lips turning darker. I've seen hypothermia enough times to know the final stages. It was shutting down. "The sled," I gasped, pointing back toward where we'd left our emergency gear on more solid ice. Mike understood immediately. He crawled back, faster than he should have, taking risks, and grabbed the rescue sled. It was just a lightweight plastic stretcher we used for injured hikers, and I had no idea if it would hold this creature's weight, but it was all we had. Together, we managed to roll the creature partially onto the sled. It was like trying to move a small car. Every movement sent new cracks shooting through the ice beneath us. I kept waiting to feel the drop, the plunge into black water, but somehow the ice held. "On 3, Mike said, gripping the sled's rope. "We pull straight back, don't stop for anything." I nodded, grabbing the other rope. My hands were numb despite the gloves. I couldn't feel my feet anymore. 1, 2, 3. We pulled. The sled moved maybe 6 inches. The creature was too heavy, the ice too unstable. Every time we gained a foot, we'd slide backward half a foot. Behind us, I could hear more ice breaking, water sloshing up through new cracks. This wasn't working. We were all going to die out here. Then the creature moved. Just slightly, but it moved. It pushed with one arm against the ice, helping us, trying to propel itself forward. Those eyes opened a bit wider, focused on me with what I can only describe as determination. It was trying to save itself. It was trying to help us save it. That changed something in me. The fear was still there, but it got pushed aside by something stronger. Pure, stubborn refusal to let this thing die. Not after we'd come this far. "Again!" I shouted. "Pull!" We pulled. The creature pushed. The sled scraped across the ice, faster now. 10 feet, 15. The cracking sounds followed us like thunder, but we didn't stop. 20 feet, 25. My lungs burned from the cold air, my muscles screaming, but I didn't let go of that rope. Mike was yelling something. I couldn't make out the words over the sound of breaking ice and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. 30 feet. The ice beneath the sled was better here, thicker. Almost there. 35 feet. We hit the shore ice, the solid stuff near the bank, and I felt the difference immediately. No more flexing, no more cracking sounds right beneath us. We were on stable ground. We dragged the sled another 10 feet onto the snow-covered shore before we both collapsed, gasping for air. For a moment, I just lay there in the snow, staring up at the gray sky, trying to convince myself I was still alive. Then I remembered the creature. I forced myself to my knees and looked at the creature lying motionless on the sled beside us. Its chest was barely moving, shallow, irregular breaths that came too far apart. Its lips had gone dark, almost blue beneath the fur. The massive body was shaking with violent shivers, which I knew was actually a good sign. When the shivering stops, that's when you've lost them. "We need to warm it up now," I said, my voice hoarse. "Thermal blankets, everything we've got." Mike was already digging through our emergency pack. He pulled out the silvery thermal blankets we carried, space-age material designed to reflect body heat back. We had 4 of them. We'd need all of them. I started wrapping the creature's torso, trying not to think about what I was touching. The fur was soaked, frozen in places, and beneath it, I could feel the massive musculature, the broad chest, rising and falling weakly. This thing was built like nothing I'd ever seen, easily 7.5 feet tall, maybe 8, built like it could snap a tree in half. And we were trying to save it. "It's not enough," Mike said, wrapping another blanket around its legs. "It's too cold, been in the water too long. We need heat. Real heat." He was right. The blankets would slow heat loss, but they wouldn't generate warmth. The creature needed active rewarming, or it would die despite our efforts. I looked around desperately. No shelter nearby, no way to build a fire fast enough, nothing. Then I noticed the injuries. Now that we had it out of the water, I could see the damage more clearly. The creature's hands were torn up, bloody. It must have been smashing at the ice trying to get out, ripping its own flesh on the jagged edges. There was a deep gash across its shoulder, still bleeding sluggishly. Dark bruises were forming across its ribs. "Look at this," Mike said quietly. He was examining the creature's right leg, which was bent at an unnatural angle below the knee. I think it's broken. That's probably how it fell through. Couldn't distribute its weight properly. I pulled out our emergency medical kit, knowing how inadequate it was going to be. We had bandages sized for humans, maybe some pain medication, nothing that would work for something this size. But I started wrapping the worst of the hand lacerations anyway, trying to stop the bleeding. The creature's eyes fluttered open while I was working on its hand. Those dark, intelligent eyes focused on my face, and I froze. We were inches apart now. I could see gold flecks in the irises, could see the way its pupils contracted slightly in the daylight, could see it looking at me, really seeing me. It didn't pull its hand away, didn't try to fight me, just watched as I wrapped the torn flesh as carefully as I could. "It's okay," I heard myself saying, like I was talking to an injured hiker. "We're trying to help you. Just stay still." I don't know if it understood my words, but something in my tone must have registered, because the creature's breathing seemed to slow, become a bit more controlled. It was choosing to trust us. The weight of that trust hit me harder than the cold. Mike had gotten the portable heater from the snowmobile, a small propane unit we used for emergency warming. It wasn't much, but he set it up near the creature's core, trying to get some warmth flowing. The creature's shivering was becoming more violent now, which was actually good. Its body was trying to generate heat on its own. "We need to make a decision," Mike said, his voice low. "Do we call this in?" I looked at the creature, then back at Mike. That was the question, wasn't it? Protocol said we should radio for backup, get medical help, report what we'd found. But the moment we did that, this creature's life would be over. Not from hypothermia, from what would come next. The scientists, the military, the media circus. This thing would never know freedom again. The creature was watching us. I swear it knew we were talking about it, deciding its fate. "Not yet," I said finally. "Let's see if we can stabilize it first." Mike nodded slowly, like he'd been hoping I'd say that. We worked in silence for the next 20 minutes, doing everything we could with what we had. I splinted the broken leg with our emergency supplies. Mike managed to stop most of the bleeding. We piled every blanket we had onto the creature, and gradually, very gradually, the shivering became less violent. Then its eyes opened fully, and it looked directly at me. And I realized it had been waiting for something. The creature's eyes held mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. There was something in that gaze, not gratitude exactly, but recognition. Like it understood what we'd done, what we'd risked. I've looked into the eyes of bears, wolves, mountain lions, and there's always that wall, that fundamental difference between human intelligence and animal instinct. This was different. This was someone looking back at me, not something. It tried to move, and I instinctively put my hand up. "Don't. You need to stay still. Your leg's broken." The creature paused, its eyes moving from my face to my raised hand, then back again. Then, slowly, deliberately, it settled back down onto the sled. It had understood me. Maybe not the words, but the intent, the meaning. Mike had gone very quiet beside me. When I glanced at him, he was staring at the creature with an expression I'd never seen on his face before. Something between wonder and fear, and something else I couldn't name. "Ethan," he whispered. "It knows. It understands us." I nodded. Because denying it would have been pointless. We both saw it. The creature's breathing had stabilized now, becoming deeper and more regular. The violent shivering had subsided to occasional tremors. Our emergency treatment was working, at least enough to pull it back from the edge. But it was still in bad shape. The broken leg needed proper splinting, the lacerations needed stitches, and there was no way to know what internal injuries it might have from the cold and the impact of breaking through the ice. I should have been thinking about next steps, about proper medical care, about protocol. Instead, I found myself studying its face, trying to reconcile what I was seeing with everything I thought I knew about the world. The features were heavy, primitive-looking, but there was structure there, symmetry, proportion. The eyes were deep-set under that prominent brow, but they tracked movement with clear focus. When it looked at the thermal blanket wrapped around it, I saw something flicker across its face. Curiosity, maybe? Or understanding of what the blanket was for. "We saved something that's not supposed to exist," Mike said quietly. He wasn't looking at me, just staring at the creature. "What the hell do we do now?" Before I could answer, the creature moved again, this time more purposefully, despite the obvious pain. It pushed itself up slightly on one elbow, the blankets sliding down, and made a sound, a low rumble that came from deep in its chest. Not threatening, almost like communication. Then it did something that changed everything. It reached out with one massive hand, the one I'd bandaged, and very gently, very carefully, touched my arm. Just a brief touch, fingers resting against my jacket sleeve for maybe 2 seconds before pulling back. "Thank you." It didn't say the words, but I felt them anyway. In that touch, in those eyes. This creature was thanking us for saving its life. "Jesus," Mike breathed. My throat felt tight. I managed to nod at the creature, acknowledging what had just passed between us. Its eyes held mine for another moment, and then it laid back down, exhausted from even that small effort. I could feel my worldview cracking apart like that ice on the lake. Everything I thought I knew about biology, evolution, what was possible, it was all wrong. This thing existed. It was real. And it was looking at us with understanding, with intelligence that shouldn't be possible in anything that wasn't human. But here's what really got me, what I didn't fully process until later. It wasn't just intelligent, it had judgment. It had chosen to trust us instead of fighting us, had chosen to help us pull it from the water, even though it must have been terrified. That takes more than just smarts. That takes wisdom. "We need to keep it warm," I said, forcing myself back into practical mode. "And we need to figure out what to do before someone else comes looking for us." Mike checked his radio. "We're already 20 minutes past our check-in time. Station's going to start wondering where we are." He was right. We had maybe another hour before they'd send someone to look for us. And what would we say when they arrived? How would we explain this? The creature was watching us again. It must have sensed our tension because its body language changed, became more alert, more guarded. Like it knew we were discussing something important. "It needs rest," Mike said. "Real rest, somewhere warm. But we can't take it to the medical center. Can't call in a medevac. The second anyone else sees this—" "I know," I said. I was thinking hard, running through options. What if it has somewhere to go? Somewhere it came from? "You mean like a den?" Mike frowned. "I guess it has to live somewhere. But how would we find it? And even if we could, how do we get it there with a broken leg?" The creature made that rumbling sound again, more insistent this time. We both turned to look at it. It was staring at us with clear focus now, and then it did something that made my skin prickle. It raised one hand and pointed. Not randomly, with purpose, pointing into the forest behind us. "No way," Mike whispered. But I was already following the direction of that massive finger, looking toward the tree line where the dense forest began. The creature rumbled again, almost urgently, and pointed once more. The message was clear. It wanted us to take it home. Mike and I stared at each other for a long moment. The creature was still pointing, its arm trembling slightly from the effort, but the gesture was unmistakable. It knew where it needed to go, and it was asking us to help it get there. "This is insane," Mike said, but he was already moving toward the snowmobile. "We're really doing this? You want to leave it here?" I asked. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. The problem was logistics. The creature was massive, probably close to 800 pounds, and with a broken leg, it couldn't walk. The rescue sled wasn't designed for this kind of weight over distance, but we didn't have a choice. We couldn't stay here, and we couldn't leave it behind. I radioed back to the station, keeping my voice steady. "Ranger Station, this is Ethan. We found the source of the motion sensors, just a moose that had gotten disoriented in the storm. Heading back now might take us a while. Ice conditions are worse than expected." The lie came easily. Too easily, maybe. But what was I supposed to say? We secured the creature as best we could on the sled, wrapping it in every blanket and tarp we had. It cooperated, understanding what we were trying to do, though I could see the pain in its eyes every time we moved its broken leg. Mike rigged up a towing system using the snowmobile and our climbing rope, and somehow, God knows how, the sled held. The creature pointed again when we were ready to move, indicating a direction that led deeper into the wilderness, away from any trails, away from anywhere humans went. We started slow, following its directions. Every few minutes, it would lift its hand and adjust our course with small gestures, left, right, straight ahead. It knew exactly where it was going. Whatever this thing was, it had lived in these mountains, had navigated them, had a home here that we'd never found in all our years of patrolling. How many times had I walked past without knowing? How many other rangers had been close to discovering this and never realized? The forest got denser as we went deeper. Old-growth pine and fir, the kind of primeval woods that felt like they'd been there since the beginning of time. The creature seemed to relax slightly as we entered the deeper forest, like it felt safer there, hidden. After about 40 minutes of careful navigation through terrain that got progressively rougher, the creature made an urgent rumbling sound. I stopped the snowmobile and looked back. It was pointing to the left, toward what looked like a solid wall of rock face covered in dense brush and fallen trees. "There's nothing there," Mike said, squinting at the rocks. But the creature kept pointing, more insistently now. It tried to sit up, wincing with pain, its whole body tense with the need to communicate something important. I got off the snowmobile and walked toward the rock face, pushing through the brush. Mike followed, and that's when we saw it. Partially hidden behind a fallen hemlock and a tangle of deadfall, there was a gap in the rock. Not obvious unless you knew where to look. A person would walk right past it 100 times and never notice. A cave entrance. The creature made a sound that could only be described as relief. This was it. This was home. "Help me clear this," I said to Mike, already pulling aside branches. We worked quickly, creating a path wide enough to get the sled through. The entrance was narrow, maybe 4 feet wide, but it opened up once you got past the initial gap. I pulled out my flashlight and shined it inside. The cave went back further than my light could reach, the passage sloping gently downward. It was dry inside, protected from the elements. The perfect shelter. We maneuvered the sled through the entrance carefully. The creature was watching everything we did with those intelligent eyes, and I could sense its urgency building. It wanted to go deeper, wanted to get somewhere specific. About 30 feet in, the passage opened into a larger chamber, and that's when my light fell on something that made me stop dead. This wasn't just a cave, this was a home. My flashlight beam swept across the chamber, and every second revealed something new that shouldn't exist. The cave was roughly circular, maybe 20 feet across, with a ceiling high enough that the creature could stand upright. But it was what filled the space that made my hands start shaking. In the far corner there was bedding, piles of pine boughs layered carefully, covered with what looked like deer hides that had been treated and softened. Not just thrown together, arranged, constructed with thought and care. Along one wall, tools, actual tools. A large flat stone that had clearly been used for grinding. I could see residue on its surface. Sharpened rocks arranged by size. Several sturdy branches that had been stripped and shaped, their ends worn smooth from use. This wasn't a bear's den or a random animal shelter. This was a workshop, a living space. "Oh my God," Mike whispered behind me. His flashlight joined mine, illuminating more details. There were stores of food, nuts, dried berries, what looked like smoked fish hanging from a natural shelf in the rock. Someone had planned for winter, had prepared. The creature made that rumbling sound again, but quieter now, almost contented. We were in the right place. Mike and I carefully maneuvered the sled deeper into the chamber, and the creature gestured toward the bedding area. It wanted to be there, in its own space. We helped it off the sled as gently as we could. Even with its injuries, the creature moved with a kind of dignity, settling onto the pine boughs with obvious relief. This was where it belonged, where it was safe. I found myself looking around the chamber with new eyes, trying to understand what I was seeing. This represented years, maybe decades, of living here. The wear patterns on the grinding stone, the way the bedding had been maintained, the carefully organized tools. This wasn't temporary. This was a life. "It's been here the whole time," Mike said, his voice barely audible. "All these years we've been patrolling these mountains, and it's been here." The creature was watching us explore its home. I expected it to be territorial, protective, maybe even aggressive about us being in its private space. But instead it seemed almost resigned, like it had already accepted that we knew its secret now, and there was nothing to do but let us see. I noticed something else then. Marks on the cave wall near the bedding. Scratches in the stone, worn smooth with age. I moved closer, running my flashlight over them. They were deliberate, organized.
Some kind of counting system, maybe? Or records of some kind? I couldn't tell, but they weren't random. "Ethan, look at this," Mike called from the other side of the chamber. I walked over to where he was crouched near a natural alcove in the rock. Inside were more items, small carved pieces of wood, worn smooth from handling. One looked almost like a figurine, crude but recognizable as some kind of animal. Others were just abstract shapes, but they'd clearly been worked with intention. Art, or maybe toys, or religious objects. I had no idea, but they represented something beyond mere survival. They represented culture. The creature made a soft sound, and when I looked back, it was gesturing to a leather pouch hanging from a rock protrusion near its bedding. Its movements were weak, exhausted, but insistent. I retrieved the pouch carefully and brought it over. The creature took it with those massive, bandaged hands and opened it. Inside were dried plants, medicinal herbs, I realized. Things that grew in these mountains. Arnica for inflammation, willow bark for pain. Others I recognized from wilderness first aid training. It knew medicine. It had collected and stored plants for healing. The creature selected several pieces, crushed them between its fingers, and began applying them to some of its smaller wounds with careful precision. Even injured, even exhausted, it was treating itself. It had done this before. How many times had this creature been hurt and healed itself in this cave, completely unknown to the human world just miles away? Mike and I stood there in silence, watching it work. The enormity of what we'd found was starting to sink in. This wasn't just an unknown animal. This was an individual with knowledge, with skills, with a life carefully built in the shadows of our civilization. "We can't tell anyone," Mike said finally. "Ever. You know that, right?" I nodded slowly, because I did know. The moment we reported this, everything in this cave would be destroyed. The creature would become property, a specimen, a subject, something to be studied. It would never see this home again. The creature finished treating its wounds and looked at us. really looked at us. And in that moment, I felt the weight of a choice being made. Not just by us, but by it too. It was trusting us with its life, with its secret. The creature settled back into its bedding, exhaustion finally overtaking it. Its eyes were already half closing, the adrenaline that had kept it going finally draining away. But before it let itself slip into sleep, it did one more thing that I'll never forget. It reached out and touched my hand again, just briefly. The same gesture it had made on the shore, but this time it felt different, more intentional, like a promise being sealed. Then its eyes closed, and its breathing deepened into sleep. Mike and I stood there in the dim cave, our flashlights casting long shadows on the walls, neither of us quite ready to move. The reality of what we'd done, what we were choosing to do, hung in the air between us. "We just saved something the world doesn't know exists," Mike said quietly. "And now we're going to keep it that way." "Yeah," I said, "we are." It wasn't even really a decision. It was the only option that made sense. I thought about what would happen if we reported this. The cave would be swarmed within hours. Scientists, government agents, media. They'd take the creature away, probably tranquilize it, put it in some facility somewhere, study it, maybe treat it well, maybe not. But either way, it would spend the rest of its life in captivity, poked and prodded and observed, never free again. And this cave, this carefully constructed home, would become a tourist attraction or a research site. Everything here that represented a life lived in peaceful solitude would be cataloged, removed, destroyed. I couldn't do that. We couldn't do that.
"It'll die if we just leave it here," Mike said, voicing the practical concern. "That leg needs to heal properly, and it's going to need more food than it has stored. It can't hunt with that injury." He was right. Saving the creature from the lake would be meaningless if we just let it starve or die from infection in this cave. We'd started something when we pulled it from that water, and we couldn't walk away from it now. "So we come back," I said. "Bring supplies, food, medical equipment, whatever it needs." "Without anyone noticing?" Mike raised an eyebrow. "We're going to have to be careful, really careful." I looked around the cave one more time, committing details to memory. The location, the landmarks, the hidden entrance. We tell no one. Not our families, not other rangers, no one. This stays between us. "For how long?" "Forever," I said. "Or until it dies of old age, I guess. However long these things live." Mike was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, yeah, okay." We checked on the creature one more time before we left. Its breathing was steady. The shivering had stopped completely. The cave was maintaining a stable temperature, probably around 45 degrees, much warmer than outside. The creature's own body heat, plus the insulation of the bedding, would keep it safe enough for now. I left one of our thermal blankets anyway, tucking it carefully around the creature's massive form. It didn't wake, just made a small sound in its sleep and shifted slightly. "We'll be back tomorrow," I whispered, not sure if it could hear me or if it would understand if it could. "I promise." Then Mike and I carefully made our way back out of the cave, replacing the brush and deadfall to hide the entrance again. We marked the location carefully in our minds, a specific tree, a rock formation, the angle of approach. We couldn't risk GPS coordinates or written notes that someone might find. The ride back to the station was silent. We were both processing what had happened, what we'd seen, what we'd committed to. My mind kept going back to that moment when the creature had touched my hand. That simple gesture of trust. When we got back to the ranger station, we filed our report about the motion sensors being triggered by a disoriented moose. We described the unstable ice conditions, recommended the lake stay closed. Everything normal, everything routine.
Nobody questioned it. Why would they? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the creature alone in that cave, injured and vulnerable. What if we'd made the wrong choice? What if it needed medical attention we couldn't provide? What if there were others like it, and we'd just left it isolated? But then I remembered the cave, the tools, the medicine, the art. This creature had survived on its own for years, probably decades. It knew how to heal itself, how to live in these mountains. It didn't need us to save it from its own life. It just needed us not to destroy it. The next morning, before our shift officially started, Mike and I loaded a backpack with supplies. Medical equipment, bandages, antibiotics from the first aid supply. Dried food, energy bars, anything with calories. We'd have to be careful about what we took. Too much missing inventory would raise questions. "We're really doing this," Mike said as we headed out on the snowmobile, ostensibly for a routine patrol. "We really are," I said. Finding the cave again was easier than I'd expected. We'd both memorized the route well. We approached cautiously, not sure what we'd find or how the creature would react to us returning. When we slipped inside the cave, the creature was awake. It was sitting up slightly, and when it saw us, something crossed its face that I could only describe as relief. It had been hoping we'd come back. I don't know what made me more certain we'd made the right choice. The intelligence in those eyes, or the fact that the creature immediately reached for the medical supplies we'd brought and began examining them with clear understanding of what they were for. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a routine. Every few days, one of us would make the trip to the cave with supplies. We brought food, fresh water, medical equipment. We checked on the creature's injuries, helped change bandages, monitored the healing of its leg. And slowly, carefully, something remarkable happened. We became, I don't know what to call it, not friends exactly, but something. There was trust between us, communication. The creature would show us things, how it used certain tools, how it prepared certain plants. And we would help where we could, bringing things it needed. It never tried to hurt us, never showed aggression. Just acceptance of our help and, I think, gratitude for our silence. 4 years have passed since that day on the frozen lake. 4 years of keeping a secret that weighs on me every single day. But in a way I've learned to carry. The creature's leg healed, though it took months. We brought supplies regularly, Mike and I alternating visits so it wouldn't look suspicious if one of us was always taking the same route. We brought food when its stores ran low during that first winter, medical supplies when infections threatened, even books once, though I'm still not sure if it could read them or just liked looking at the pictures. Its name is, well, I don't actually know if it has a name. We never figured out how to ask, but it learned to recognize us, to anticipate our visits. Sometimes, when I'd arrive at the cave, it would have something ready to show me, a new tool it had crafted, or tracks it had found near the cave entrance that concerned it. We developed a kind of communication, the three of us. Not language exactly, but understanding. Gestures, expressions, shared experience. The creature was teaching us about the forest in ways we'd never learned in all our training, which plants were edible, how to read weather patterns in ways I'd never considered, where the animals moved during different seasons. And we protected it. There were close calls, hikers who wandered too close to the cave area, other rangers on patrol who wanted to explore sections we'd redirect them away from. Once, a research team wanted to set up monitoring equipment in the exact valley where the cave was located. Mike and I spent weeks subtly sabotaging that proposal, suggesting better locations, citing unstable ground conditions, until they finally chose somewhere else. The creature's existence became the central secret of our lives. I think about it constantly, whether it's safe, whether it's healthy, whether we're doing enough. Mike's the same way. We check in with each other regularly,
comparing notes, making sure our stories stay consistent. Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing. Maybe the creature could have had a better life if we'd reported it. Medical care, protection, recognition. But then I remember the cave, the tools, the careful organization of a life lived in freedom. And I remember the look in its eyes when it touched my hand that first time. It chose this life, and we chose to protect that choice. Last month, something happened that made me question everything all over again. I was making my regular supply run to the cave. It was early morning, sun just coming up, when I found tracks leading away from the entrance. Not the creature's tracks, smaller, more human-sized, but not quite human. My heart nearly stopped. I followed the tracks carefully, and they led to a smaller cave about a quarter-mile away. Inside, I found signs of recent occupation, fresh bedding, tools that looked similar to the ones in the main cave, but cruder, newer, like someone was just learning. The creature wasn't alone.
There was at least one other. Maybe there always had been.
I never told Mike about this. I don't know why. Maybe because it felt like the creature's secret to share, not mine. Or maybe because I wasn't ready to process what it meant, that there might be a whole population of these beings living in our mountains, and we'd never known. That there might be others like them all over the world, hiding just beyond our sight. The creature in the cave, our creature, I guess I think of it now, never confirmed or denied the existence of others. But sometimes when I visit, I catch it looking toward the forest with an expression I recognize. Longing, maybe. Or connection to something beyond what I can see. I still don't know what it is. Sasquatch, Bigfoot, some unknown species of great ape, a remnant population of something we thought was extinct. I've stopped trying to categorize it. It exists. That's enough. Mike retired last year, moved to Colorado to be closer to his daughter. Before he left, we stood at the cave entrance together one last time. The creature was inside, resting. It had gotten older. I could see it in the graying of its fur, the way it moved more carefully now. "You'll keep this up?" Mike asked me. "The visits? The supplies?" "Until I can't anymore," I said. "Yeah," he nodded. "I think we did the right thing, Ethan. I really do." "Me too," I said, and I meant it. Now it's just me. I make the trip every week, sometimes twice if I can manage it. I bring food, check for injuries, make sure the creature is okay. Sometimes we sit together in comfortable silence. Sometimes I talk about my day, about changes in the park, about nothing important. I don't know how much it understands, but it listens. And I keep the secret. I'll keep it for the rest of my life. If you've made it this far in my story, thank you for listening. I know it sounds impossible. Believe me, I know. But I'm telling you exactly what happened, exactly what I saw. Sometimes the world is stranger than we want to admit. Sometimes the impossible is just something we haven't discovered yet. If stories like this one interest you, true accounts from the wilderness that challenge everything we think we know, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below telling me, would you have made the same choice we did? Would you have kept the secret? I think about that question a lot. About what we owe to the things we discover, to the beings we encounter who never ask to be found. About whether some secrets are meant to be kept. I'll be making another supply run tomorrow morning. Same as always. The creature will be there, in its cave, living the life it's always lived. Hidden, protected, free. And I'll be there to make sure it stays that way. That's my story. That's what happened on Crystal Lake 4 years ago, and what's been happening ever since. You can believe it or not, I'm not trying to convince anyone. But I needed to tell it to someone, even if it's just strangers on the internet. Because some secrets get too heavy to carry alone, and some promises are worth keeping forever.